I work on board this cruise ship and I'm about to reveal bizarre cruise secrets that passengers are never told. And after this video, you'll never be able to look at cruising the same again. Starting off with a little secret that is going to save you money within the first hour that you're on board. Now, no one likes spending hundreds of dollars at the end of their cruise holiday for no reason, which is exactly what happened to my mum and dad when they forgot this little secret that I told them. So what you need to do at the beginning of your cruise, as soon as you get on board, is to visit reception and get service charge removed. And I'm actually shocked at how many people don't realise you can actually get this removed for free. You're literally saving yourself money. Now, this may not sound like a big deal, but service charge is basically an extra amount added to your account as soon as you buy things on board, like snacks and alcohol, which is crazy to think about when you can get the exact same things for cheaper if you use this little secret. Now, this isn't to say I don't recommend tipping. I 100% do from a crew member's perspective. However, most regular cruisers actually prefer to tip employees personally, such as their cabin steward, so they actually know where their money is going. Now, I'd highly recommend doing this if you're buying a lot of stuff on board, because if you're buying alcoholic drinks, service charge can be almost doubled. So save yourself some free money, go to reception and get service charge removed. Now, the next secret is something I get asked a lot when I'm on board, and it's actually a myth that a lot of people think isn't true, but it actually is. And that is, on board, there's actually a jail. Now, it's not got bars on the window or anything like that. It's mainly just a plain cabin with a shower, bed and bathroom. The jail is mainly used if someone is banned or kicked off the ship in the middle of the sea and the security team can't do anything to get them off. And depending on the severity of the crime that they commit on board, sometimes the cruise ship will have to do an emergency dock so they can take that person or people off the cruise ship immediately. And to make things even scarier, when you go to places like Singapore and Dubai, if anything you've done is illegal, the captain legally has to hand you over to the local authority. So depending whereabouts you are in the world, the captain will just hand you over to that country. So for things like drugs, which have in places like Singapore or Dubai, have a zero tolerance on it, and they actually have the death penalty, there's nothing the ship or the captain can do. When I was in Germany, we were in the German waters, and because the German authority wanted to do a random inspection on the cruise ship, they just came on. I was asleep, I got a random knock at the cabin, and the German port authority were there with sniffer dogs, and they were just doing a general search of the cruise ship to see if there was any drugs on board. But it was quite surreal to actually see it firsthand and how seriously they take the drug policy in and around the world. Scenarios like this are actually regularly acted out, and because I work in the production team, sometimes we're used to help the security team with their training. So for one instance, we were actually used to help the security, and we actually had to pretend we were bringing things on board that weren't allowed. So we were bringing prohibited weapons on and try and basically smuggle them on board. But when we were doing it, it was actually quite scary because the security team are obviously very, very lovely, but they were very, very good at the job, and security did end up actually finding every single item that we were smuggling on, which just shows that the security scanning when you come on and off the ship is actually very, very essential for people's safety on board. As a cruise employee myself, I would say this next secret is super underrated, and most guests have probably never even thought about doing this. This is to always try and board the cruise ship last on your embarkation day. To help you understand why I would suggest this, I'd probably start thinking from a crew member's point of view. Embarkation day is two things. It's old guests leaving and new guests arriving, but it also means it's the longest and busiest day for the crew. Every time you dock and it's an embarkation day, all the crew get off the ship. We live on here. As soon as we get the chance to get off, we are off the ship as soon as possible. I know on some cruise lines they actually give you a time slot allotted, so they'll give you a time slot to actually come on board in your groups. But for a little tip that I told my mum and dad when they cruised, and they actually listened to this one this time, and they said it was really helpful, come right at the end of your group. My mum and dad actually got pushed forward, so they arrived at like 10 to 2, which meant the majority of their group had already gone through and they'd started boarding the next group. So this meant for them that they didn't end up queuing at all. And as soon as they got on board, their cabin was ready, they could go upstairs, the buffet was open. If you get on board too early, the cabin's not going to be ready, your bags aren't going to be on board yet, so you're literally just going to be wandering around the empty ship. There's going to be hardly any guest services available, which I know might sound controversial, but honestly, on majority of cruise lines now, they don't actually do drills, so they don't do muster drills. You don't need to go around with your life jackets anymore, which a lot of people think they do, which is why they get on early. I'm telling you, please don't. Save your time, spend a nice day off in port and get on last. Now, this next secret catches a lot of guests out because they don't know this simple trick all crew members use before we set sail for sea. I actually heard a lot of guests talking about it this week, and that is, do you actually get phone signal when you're at sea? The short answer is yes, but it's going to cost you an arm and a leg because you're going to connect to a mobile network that is called Telenor Maritime, which is going to cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds if you connect to it without knowing. So all you need to do is put your phone on aeroplane mode, just like you do when you're in the air, when you go on an aeroplane. Doing this will also stop you from connecting to any unwanted mobile networks. If you simply put this on, it's going to save you a whole lot of money on your next cruise holiday. Depending on the different cruise lines, different cruise ships, and the average age on board, deaths on board cruise ships are actually more common than you might think. Medical fees on board the cruise ship are actually very, very expensive. And my mum and dad actually had to go to medical, well my mum did. When she was on board, she actually paid $200 for something. And when she's back home, she actually gets it free on the NHS. For little things like you've just grazed your knee and you just need a plaster, I'd recommend just bringing on your own first aid kit. Because things like seasickness tablets as well, which are free for the crew, can cost up to $10 to $15 for some passengers, which isn't ideal where you can get them in the shop back at home for a lot cheaper. If you've enjoyed these tips from a crew member, you're going to be shocked at the type of cabins that we live in for 7 months at a time.